U.S. states, 100 million people placed under warning plus range. Welcome to the latest issue of Top Secret. Raging floodwaters surged through, submerging homes, sweeping away everything in their path, turning peaceful towns in Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia into battlefields of nature's wrath. Over 100 million Americans are living in extreme fear as floods, landslides, and strong winds attack relentlessly, taking lives, destroying livelihoods, and pushing thousands of the horrifying scene of roads turning into rivers, houses submerged in muddy swamps, and cries for help echoing through the rushing waters makes everyone's heart tighten. The destructive power of floods in 4 states. On February 16, 2025, a terrifying natural disaster struck, placing over 100 million Americans under high alert. Severe flooding, landslides, heavy snowfall, and howling storm winds attacked many areas, particularly in the south, pushing tens of thousands into power outages and chaos. This tragedy has claimed at least 10 lives, including 9 in Kentucky and 1 in Georgia, leaving irreparable pain for families and communities. Heavy rains from Saturday to Sunday turned roads into rivers, submerging homes, stores, and people's dreams. Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia suffered terrible flash floods with a series of emergency warnings issued. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear described this as one of the most severe weather events in the past decade, plunging the entire state into horror. Residents, from elderly people who have experienced many historic floods to young families just building their lives, are all stunned by nature's destructive power. Images of flooded roads, houses buried in mud, and rescue boats navigating through swift currents have become heartbreaking symbols of this disaster. Many residents in small towns, where life was once peaceful, have now lost their homes, property, and livelihoods. The Kentucky resident shared that he had never seen floodwaters rise so quickly in his lifetime, sweeping everything away in just hours. The psychological wounds left behind are even deeper than the material damage. Many families face the pain of losing loved ones while survivors worry about an uncertain future. Rescue teams, despite dangers from swift currents and floating debris, work tirelessly to bring people to safety. They use boats, rubber dinghies, and even helicopters to reach isolated areas. Their courageous spirit has ignited hope amid a thin line between life and death. Local and federal authorities quickly responded to the crisis. Governor BCA declared a state of emergency in Kentucky, paving the way for federal relief resources. Shelters were established in schools, churches, and community centers, providing food, water, and temporary accommodation for thousands of evacuees. Volunteers from everywhere poured in, bringing food, warm blankets, and comfort. Many non-governmental organizations also participated in distributing necessities and providing medical support. However, the scale of damage is so large that rescue operations faced many difficulties. Power and water systems were disrupted in many areas, pushing residents into deprivation. Damaged sewage systems increased pollution risks, especially where floodwaters carry mud and waste. Weather forecasts show heavy rains may continue, raising concerns about new floodways. Nevertheless, the community's spirit of unity has become a bright spot with stories of sharing and compassion spreading everywhere. The recovery journey after this disaster promises to be long and full of affected states need not only to repair material damage but also to heal people's psychological wounds. Many rural areas, dependent on agriculture, face crop failure risks due to flooded farmland. Small businesses, from grocery stores to restaurants, had to close, leaving workers jobless. The federal government has committed to providing financial aid, including interest-free loans and reconstruction grants, but allocating resources fairly and effectively remains a difficult problem. Meanwhile, local residents, despite heavy losses, continue to support each other. Small actions like sharing a hot meal or opening homes to evacuees have created a strong network of solidarity, helping them through the darkest days. Heavy damage from floods. Heavy rains from Saturday to Sunday turned many areas in the southern U.S. into a vast ocean. In Kentucky, floods submerged hundreds of roads, from major highways to small alleys in towns. The town of Hazard, about 22 kilometers southeast of Krypton, saw the Kentucky River rise to 9.3 meters, the highest level since 1984. Over 40 businesses in Hazard Center, from a family restaurant to local fire and police stations, were devastated by floodwaters. Floodwaters not only destroyed infrastructure but also swept away goods, equipment, and people's precious keepsakes. The shop owner in Hazard recounted that all goods in his warehouse were destroyed, pushing his family into debt. Longtime residents who experienced previous floods said they had never seen floodwaters rise so quickly and powerfully as this time. The Pambolit area, about 136 kilometers southeast of Lexington, fell into critical condition as floodwaters threatened a hospital and a nursing home. The authorities had to urgently evacuate hundreds of patients and the elderly, with Kentucky State Police mobilizing forces to move 100 patients from a nursing home to. The governor of BC announced that all 120 counties in the state were affected, with over 300 roads blocked due to floods and landslides. By Sunday afternoon, more than 433,000 households across Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee lost power, according to poweroutage.us. In Kentucky alone, approximately 23,125 households were still without power by the end of the day, while another 9,800. Authorities advised residents to use only boiled water to avoid contamination risks, but the lack of clean water still caused many difficulties. In Tennessee, the area around Clarksville, about 64 kilometers northwest of Nashville, recorded rainfall of up to 19.3 centimeters in just one night. Sudden floods turned roads into rivers, prompting the Louisville Police River Patrol and dive team to coordinate with fire departments for rescue operations. In Macon County, about 104 kilometers northeast of Nashville, over 50 residents of a nursing home were urgently evacuated to higher ground as floodwaters approached. Clarksville Mayor Joe Pease described the flood scene as alarming, with forecasts predicting an additional 5 centimeters of rain by Sunday evening. In Obi-Wan County, a breached levee caused rapid flooding, submerging the town of Rivers with a population of only about 300 people. Rising floodwaters, combined with power outages and freezing temperatures, created a life-threatening situation. Mayor Steve Cotworth had to declare a state of emergency, ordering mandatory evacuations to protect. Rescue teams in Tennessee worked tirelessly, using boats and drones to reach isolated areas. In Rivers, images of red boats navigating through floodwaters, rescuing people from deeply flooded homes, became a symbol of courage. However, harsh weather conditions with ongoing heavy rain and strong winds made rescue efforts even more difficult. Many roads were blocked by landslides, and damaged bridges disrupted the transport of essential supplies and rescue. Sewage systems in some areas were overwhelmed, increasing the risk of environmental pollution. Local authorities urged residents to limit travel and adhere to flood warnings. But with many families losing their homes, finding safe shelter was a major challenge. Flood damage extended beyond infrastructure, deeply impacting people's livelihoods. Many farmers in Kentucky and Tennessee lost entire crops due to submerged farmland. Livestock farms also suffered losses as cattle died or had to be urgently relocated, increasing costs and disrupting production. Small businesses, which are the lifeblood of towns like Hazard and Clarksville, faced the risk of bankruptcy. Many business owners said they did not know how to recover when all their assets had been swept away by floodwaters. The reconstruction journey requires strong support from the government and community. But with such extensive damage, the road ahead remains challenging. Deploying rescue operations during the storm and floods. Before the devastating flood disaster that struck on February 16, 2025, rescue teams in affected states worked non-stop to protect lives and minimize damage. In Kentucky, 19 swift water rescue teams were deployed across multiple counties, conducting over 1,000 rescues by Sunday afternoon. These teams used rescue boats, inflatable rafts, and specialized equipment to access completely isolated areas, where people were trapped in flooded homes or had to climb onto roofs to escape. The powerful floodwaters, carrying mud and debris, posed deadly dangers, but rescue workers did not hesitate. A touching story from Jackson County told of a rescue team using ropes and life jackets to pull a family of 5, including a newborn baby, out of a house surrounded by floodwaters. Such efforts brought hope to hundreds of families in despair. The Kentucky National Guard, with 146 soldiers and pilots, was dispatched to 16 counties to support rescue operations and transport essential supplies. They worked in harsh weather conditions, facing continuous heavy rain, swift currents, and landslide risks. Some soldiers used helicopters to drop food and water to areas inaccessible by road. In West Virginia, flooding along the Tug Fork River and its tributaries caused severe damage. The town of Williamson witnessed the Tug Fork River rising to 14.9 meters, submerging major routes like US Route 52 and US Route 109. Many drivers were trapped in their vehicles amid floodwaters and had to rely on rescue boats. A recorded video showed rescue workers using a motorboat to save an elderly man who was clinging to a utility pole to avoid being swept away. In the Kimball area and neighboring Logan County, Rescue teams also conducted dozens of rescues, evacuating people from deeply flooded homes. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey declared a state of emergency in 10 counties and ordered urgent evacuations in the southern parts of the state, where the Bluestone River caused severe flooding. Warnings about landslide and rockfall risks were continuously issued, urging residents in flooded areas to leave immediately. Some small communities like Sanishford were almost completely isolated as roads were blocked by floodwaters and debris. In Virginia, the town of Richland in Tazewell County faced severe flooding, with local police urging residents to evacuate. In Hurley, a small community in Buchanan County, muddy floodwaters rushed through the streets, submerging vehicles, homes, and everything in their path. A woman stands on her porch, recording the scene of floodwaters sweeping away everything around her, while her porch remains fortunately unsubmerged. Counties such as Amherst, Appomattox, Wexford, and Campbell, along with the city of Lynchburg, are all under a flash flood warning, with an extremely dangerous risk emphasized by the National Weather Service. Rescue teams here at work overnight, using floodlights and positioning equipment to search for people trapped in the darkness. Rescue operations require not only courage but also close coordination among forces. Many rescue workers have worked continuously for over 24 hours, resting only a few minutes before returning to duty. However, they face numerous challenges, from a lack of specialized equipment to devastated terrain. In some areas, collapsed bridges and eroded roads make accessing trapped residents nearly impossible. Nevertheless, courageous spirit and the will to save people have helped rescue teams overcome all difficulties, bringing a glimmer of hope amid a fierce flood. The helping hand of relief from the community and government assistance, authorities in affected states have quickly acted to respond to this historic flood disaster. In Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear declared a state of emergency and sent a letter requesting President Donald Trump to declare a disaster for the state. This request was approved on Saturday evening, paving the way for federal funds to support rescue efforts, provide essentials, and rebuild after the disaster. Governor Beshear also directly communicated with Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and the acting director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency to ensure shelters have been set up in schools, churches, and community centers across the state, providing food, water, warm blankets, and temporary accommodation for thousands evacuated from their homes. The shelter in Jackson County welcomed over 200 people in just one night, with volunteers working tirelessly to ensure everyone is cared for. In Tennessee, local rescue teams worked at high intensity to bring people to safety. In the town of Rivers in Obi-Wan County, rescue workers used red boats to navigate through floodwaters, reaching deeply submerged homes. Some families were rescued just before floodwaters reached the second floor of their house. Local officials also prepared buses to evacuate dozens of people if the situation worsened. Mayor Steve Carr called for community unity while coordinating with relief organizations to provide food and water for evacuees. In West Virginia, non-governmental organizations and volunteers played a crucial role in supporting residents. They distributed food, warm blankets, clothing, and personal items to those who lost their homes. A volunteer group in Williamson organized a distribution point for essentials at a school, where hundreds of residents came to receive support. The local community, despite suffering heavy losses, demonstrated admirable solidarity. Many residents opened their homes to welcome evacuees, sharing food and shelter during difficult times. A family in Richlands, Virginia turned their basement into a temporary shelter for 3 neighboring families who lost their homes. Small businesses, while facing their own losses, still contributed food and supplies. The grocery store in Clarksville, Tennessee donated all remaining food from its warehouse before floodwaters destroyed the facility. These actions, though small, created a strong support network, helping people feel less alone in the disaster. State authorities also launched financial assistance programs to help people overcome the crisis. In Kentucky, interest-free loans were provided to households and small businesses to repair homes and restore business operations. Grant programs were also designed to support farmers who lost crops through the flooded farmland. In West Virginia, mobile medical teams were deployed to provide healthcare services and psychological counseling for those affected. These efforts, combined with community solidarity, brought hope that affected states would gradually overcome the disaster. However, with the scale of damage large and the risk of continued flooding, the recovery journey still faces many challenges ahead. The resilience and compassion of the people will be the key for them to rise up and rebuild their lives from the ruins. The aftermath of the storm and lessons from the flood disaster. The 2025 flood disaster left deep wounds not only in the short term but for many years in the states of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. The agriculture sector, the economic livelihood of Kentucky and Tennessee, suffered heavy losses as thousands of hectares of farmland were flooded, destroying corn, soybean, and wheat crops. Many farmers, after months of hard work, now face the risk of total crop loss, pushing them into debt and financial instability. Livestock farms also did not escape the disaster. Cattle died or had to be urgently relocated, disrupting the food supply chain and causing significant economic damage. A farmer in Martin County, Tennessee, shared that he lost dozens of cows, plunging his family into unprecedented hardship. Small businesses in towns like Hazard and Clarksville faced the risk of bankruptcy. Shops, restaurants, and hotels had to close due to flood damage, leaving many workers temporarily unemployed. A restaurant owner in Hazard recounted that all equipment and goods in his establishment were destroyed, and he didn't know how to reopen. This situation increased financial pressure on families already struggling from previous economic fluctuations. The infrastructure system was also severely damaged. Hundreds of roads and bridges were damaged, requiring massive repair costs. The electricity and clean water systems, the foundation of modern life, are being disrupted in many areas. Thousands of households are facing shortages of domestic water and electricity, leaving them in precarious living conditions. Environmental pollution becomes a major threat as floodwaters carry mud, chemicals from fields, and waste, threatening future water sources and farmland. This disaster is a wake-up call about the increasingly severe impacts of climate change. Unusually heavy rains, flash floods, and strong winds are occurring more frequently, forcing states to take urgent action. Investment in sustainable infrastructure, such as upgrading drainage systems and building embankments along rivers, is necessary to reduce risks. Modern early warning systems using advanced forecasting technology also need to be deployed to help people better prepare for disasters. Experts emphasize that states need to develop long-term response plans, from improving infrastructure to educating communities on how to cope with extreme weather. Lessons from the 2025 floods will be the foundation for states to build a more resilient future. Amid the losses, the spirit of solidarity among the people has become a great source of inspiration. Small actions like sharing food, opening homes to evacuees, or larger efforts like participating in rescue operations have demonstrated the indomitable. Communities have cooked hundreds of meals with their neighbors to distribute to those who have lost. Despite facing difficulties, communities in Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia are rising up, ready to rebuild their lives with strength and compassion, promising a stronger future than ever. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to click the subscribe button for Beyond the Veil 0707 to get the earliest updates on videos. Thank you for watching.